Coming to you live from downtown Detroit, this is Benzinga's PreMarket Prep with your host, Joel Elconin.
This is a volatile puppy here, isn't it?
And Dennis Dick.
I'm bidding a penny. I will buy the stock for a penny.
With everything you need to start your trading day. Good morning, traders and investors, and welcome to this Wednesday edition of Benzinga's PreMarket Prep, brought to you by Thinkorswim and TD Ameritrade Spencer Israel. As always, here with Joel Elconin and Dennis Dick. A little bit of a slower news day today, maybe to be expected as we approach the end of the year. But as always, there are some movers. We got WDC with some guidance out yesterday. AMD, Under Armour, not actually down this morning. They just reclassified some shares. We'll talk about that. Maybe we'll talk about looking at options market order flow and how some people read that, and I know Dennis has an opinion there. At 8:35, we'll be joined by Tommy Lackey. He is the managing partner and portfolio manager at Relativity Capital Advisors. But before we get to that, Joel, how are we looking in the S&Ps this morning?
Very quiet session. Got within a few ticks of the all-time high, so we'll be keeping an eye on 2213.75. Not much on the downside here, just trading below the close, so we'll see if we can get green on the session. Crude lower, running into problems just above 51 here. We're going to have a great guest on next week to talk about the crude oil futures and the energy complex. Gold and silver into green, but pretty much still in a trading range. Dennis, kind of a slow morning here. Did you fall asleep at your keyboard?
You know what? There's some individual movers here. So yeah, overall market's slow, but S&Ps have been slow. You just got to go find those individual movers, and we know the financials. They have been moving. We've been starting the show with financials a lot of days in a row here. And did you see the move yesterday in Deutsche Bank? Was that capitulation or what, Joel? Because it just felt like everybody had to own it yesterday. That stock just blew through 17, blew through 18, went all the way up, closed the highs at 1829. After hours, was trading up at 1848, 1850. It's down here a little bit this morning back at 1820, but just as much as everybody hated it back in September, everybody loves it now.
I was one of those haters too, and I remember like right when after it made that 11-19 low and got a little bit of a bounce, I'm like, oh, I bought some cheap puts, and they got a little bit cheaper, and I sold them right away. I wish I would have turned around. I don't see, big driver yesterday, the overnight news. I guess Italy, I guess that's good for Deutsche Bank here. Not only Deutsche Bank, they finally cleared out that paper at 22. How'd you do on that one, Dennis? That Bank America trade. Did you get?
I covered at the open, thank goodness, because it continued. Well, actually, no, it wasn't actually. Thank goodness. Actually, the open was the high of the move. I should have waited a few minutes, but 22.10 is where I covered, so which was right near the high, and actually sold off since then. Came back up towards the end of the day and closed at the highs again. But I just feel like the rally. I keep trying to short it, and I keep saying on the show how difficult it is. Yet I find myself still trying to short these things because they're just so overextended. I mean, eventually there's going to be a collapse in these
But
stocks.
what? When? When is there going to be a collapse?
Who knows? I feel like it's coming, but, I thought it was coming, at 20, 21, 22. Maybe it comes at 25. It's so difficult to do. So don't follow my lead here, guys. I keep trying to short these financials, and it doesn't work. Today we are pulling back. We were a lot stronger here, and it's interesting here. We're getting a little bit of a turn here this morning, because if you look even Bank America, Joel, what's the pre-market high? When I came in earlier this morning, it was trading up over, I thought, 22.30. And now we're trading down.
Yeah, 22.33 just kind of leaked up there, leaped 22.33, currently trading 22.14, down 2 cents on the session, keeping an eye on the close of 22.16 in that. Goldman got highest level since, I believe, December of 2007. J.P. Morgan, I wonder when Jamie Dimon's going to – remember the Jamie Dimon low, Dennis?
Yeah, that was around the 60s.
Yeah.
That was for the overall market.
Yeah, Luke, you did a calculation how much he was up on that trade. Do you remember what it was when he bought I don't know. He bought a 500,000 shares at like 40. Let's see, when was that in JP Morgan? Oh, it was right around the 52 area, and now it's up at 83. Be interesting to see what he does with that. But man, you can't fight the trend yet. But we'll see if we get a little pause. I do see the SPOOs coming down 2 points here. 222.08. We're down two handles.
Just talking here, and Spencer, we were talking, Tommy's talking about options order flow, and there's a lot, to options when you're talking about looking at options order flow to determine where price is going. Spencer, just give us the details of it, what you guys were compiling there, because you were looking at a list of potentially looking at different options order flow. The Nigerian brothers obviously do this a lot, and there's a lot of other traders that do it as well. I have an opinion on it, but, just give us your thoughts here, Spencer, first.
Well, we just at Benzinga every day we compile the largest put and call purchases made every day, just because people
Where
like.
do we find that in the pro?
So this is
Like if we're looking for that.
so you can do a keyword search for put or call or usually they're titled like it's like watch these for huge put purchases. Wednesday is the one that we did at 2:20 this morning. But so you can do a keyword search, but so search keyword for put, keyword for call,
And
and
it'll show up the most for each day.
yeah,
The top.
so it's an article. So you just click on and it's like a headline, and the articles. You click on the headline, and it shows the article right then and there. So like just for example, like this morning, Sears, SunPower, Sprint, and SeaWorld all had large put purchases made in Wednesday trading so far. So or Tuesday nights or Tuesday's regular session, I should say. So but that's just something that we do because people like looking at it. And you were saying that they do the same thing, CNBC. People like looking at
Yeah,
this
well,
stuff.
CNBC talks it a lot. The Nigerian brothers talk about it a lot. There's a lot, and there's something to that. I mean, I'm going to say here, I'm going to give you, two sides of the story. There is something to it. I mean, if there's insiders, that have inside information, it's obviously a lot easier to put on an option position than an outside option position than it is to try to go into the open market and buy stock. It takes less capital as well. So the odd time, there might be some fishy stuff where, if you actually see this outside options purchase, maybe somebody knows something. I would say the majority of the time, though, so this is, the caveat here. The majority of the time, a lot of these big option purchases that you see occurring outside of the market are more hedging tactics. They're, defensive, plays where somebody's got a big position on and, they got to buy some outside puts to protect their position or, they've got, some different things going on. And just for an example, why I know this happens too, is I would say, I can't put numbers to it, but, I would think there's probably 80 or 90% of the time when you're looking at these outside options, a lot of times it is just hedging tactics. So there's nothing more to it. Somebody doesn't know anything. It's just hedging tactics. My one friend, Chris, who's a huge trader, I remember him talking about he was putting on an options hedge in a specific stock and he had a huge position. He was hedging with options. And I remember him calling me up and he was saying, Dennis, they were just talking about my trade on CNBC. They were talking about, and he had this, hedging trade. And they were talking about like, oh, somebody might know something. He's like, I don't know anything. It's just a hedging trade. So it's funny, sometimes people will read more into it than is really there. I'll tell you, if you make money using those options, and using those as indicators, by all means, continue to do it. It's something I do not incorporate in my own trading because it's kind of like finding a little bit of a needle in the haystack. Because how do you decipher what is hedging and what is somebody in the know? And I would imagine the majority of it is hedging. So if it's something that works for you, continue to do it. I always say that. It's just not something that I use because I know most of it is hedging tactics.
All right. Well, we're going to get some interesting feedback from Tommy Lackey because he used to think the same way you did, but he says his mind is changing. We'll talk to
That's
Tommy.
good. I'm
Good.
really curious,
Because he's
Try to change my opinion as well. Maybe I'll incorporate it in my, trading as well. So awesome. We're gonna have Tommy on to talk this as well.
just which way I'm leaning here on that, a little bit towards your way, Dennis, because what if someone buys a boatload of puts? Well, are they opening a put? Are they opening a bearish position or were they short the puts? And they're covering. So that, that means two different things. Also, I mean, I don't know the exact percentages either, but a lot of times when those big option trades are done, there's something they're doing something with the stock or something to offset it. Unless they're just making a huge gamble. I mean, I have seen on the pro feed, some big option trades and something, and then something gets taken over. There's a rumor, so there is with sometimes people in the know. But we'll get back to this at 8:35 when we have Tommy Lackey on, managing partner and portfolio manager at Relativity Capital Advisors.
Let's jump in individual stock news. And if you're in UA and you're looking at it this morning on your screen, and if your platform is showing it trading down 4 or 5 points here, your platform is wrong because there was a change in symbology here for UA and UA.C. So Under Armour has always had two different classes of stock. They've had their main one UA and they've had their UA.C. UA.C trades 4 to 5 points below where UA is. Well, for whatever reason, Under Armour decided to change the symbols on both of these stocks, but I don't know why they did it this way. They changed UA.C to UA, and they changed UA to UAA. I don't know why they touched UA in the first place. I would have just went UA and kept UA the same for simplicity purposes, and changed UA.C to UAC or something like that. But maybe UAC wasn't available. Let's go see if that's the case. No, I think UAC was available. So I wish, if I was on reorg with Under Armour, I would have did a lot differently there. So anyways, mass confusion here with UA. So UA.C has become UA, and UA has become UAA. So if you're going up and bringing up those stocks in your platform, actually UA is trading higher here this morning. Have I confused you enough? UA is actually trading up 58 cents.
Just when you want me to look at UA, I'll put in UA, and that's all I'm going to do.
You're going to forget about UAA. You're going to forget about UA. You can totally forget about UA.C because it doesn't exist anymore.
Okay.
So UA, though, is UAA now. So actually, when you're talking Under Armour, you want to actually put in UAA now because that's the main one. And if you look, UA closed yesterday up at $30.94. UAA is trading at 31.05, and that was what it become. UA has become UAA. So the main symbol for Under Armour now is UAA.
All right.
Now I've confused the hell out of
No, I got it. They don't have the data yet. My only question is did Under Armour hire someone from Google?
with the class split and all the confusion there. I don't know why they had to make everything complicated here now. There was a simpler way to do it. But in any regard here, don't worry, Under Armour shareholders. If you took it home, you're not down 5 points here this morning. You actually now have UAA. And UAA is actually trading up 11 cents. So no need to panic. UA is not down 5 points.
All right. That was a great discussion there. Any big option trades in Under Armour lately?
All right, we're leaving the options. So lots of discussion on symbology options here. Let's jump into the movers. Earnings parade from last night, not much of a parade, but there was one stock, Dave & Buster's. There was a parade over there. That stock, Play, which is the coolest ticker symbol, might I say, is trading up $6 here this morning. It's up 13% at 54.31. Huge rally here in PLAY. Spencer, how do they do?
Yeah, I think this is because Luke over here on the desk goes there all the time. Q3 EPS 25 cents versus a 14-cent estimate. Nice revenue of $228.7 million versus $216.7 million. So nice beat there as well. They also are raising their fiscal year 2016 guidance and are raising their net income and revenues. And they see Q4 comps at 2.5 to 4.5%. So looking good all around.
This is like the adult Chuck E. Cheese, right?
You just
like is Luke there? What do you do? I've never been to Dave & Buster's. Like, what do you do that's like
all right,
fun?
I will test because I've gone with Luke on occasion. No, you're exactly right. There's a bar and a restaurant and arcade games, and you play and you win cheap toys.
They get all like
skee
you
ball?
go drinking
ball?
and play.
Sure, yeah.
Joel likes skee ball.
Ah, man. All I know is that there's one. Do you guys go to the one on 275?
Have you been in a Dave & Buster's, Joel?
I've never been in one, and I'd probably get a headache walking in immediately. But every time I drive by there, at night, the place is packed. Absolutely packed. It is. So whatever.
Yeah, well, it's if you just combine Chuck E. Cheese and a bar, that's what you get.
How much do you guys?
It kind of sounds pretty good. Maybe it's because we're too old, Joel, now to go enjoy Chuck E. Cheese in a bar, but that sounds actually pretty. If I was like 19 years old, I think I'd go to Dave & Buster's.
How much do you
For
drop
21, I guess, in the States.
how much do you pay when you go there? I don't know. I
Is
guess
there like a cover charge?
no. There's no cover, but you pay for like a card,
Okay.
to get a balance that then you then pay for games with that card. But I'm looking around the
So,
office. We have random stuff around here that is from Dave and Buster's, Joel, that you don't you don't even realize. So like prizes and such.
How's the food?
what
I
kind of
I wouldn't know.
prizes do you get? I want to go back to this prizes thing. What do you win?
It's you win anything. I mean, you can win anything from
What have you won there?
like cheap boardwalk stuff to like baseball bats or like actual electron. They have like iPhones there. They have like actual
So
stuff.
if you like won a drinking contest or something,
Yeah, sure.
what are the or it's another games, the
No,
arcade
it's
games?
arcade games. It's arcade games.
All right, no drinking contest at
No.
Dave and Buster's.
All right, well,
Interesting,
some people in the
interesting.
chat like it, so it's a
Maybe I'll have to have my steak dinner at Dave and Buster's, Joel.
Hey, for sure, man, for
Do they serve
sure.
steak?
Yes.
It'd probably be pretty bad steak.
All right, 54.50. That is the pre-market high. That's the all-time high. That's blowing away the former all-time high. You had a double top at 49.13, 49.18. Dennis, this does not close above 55.
I can't buy 55. No, I'm not betting on that.
I don't know.
PLAY. I'm chasing. I hate chasing stocks. It's just not in me. I think it could close above 55, but it's not in me. I'm not fading this thing either. So up $6.50 here, breakout central above 50. So I'm not fading, but I'm not taking that bet either with you.
Oh,
So I think it closes above 52. Counter bet.
no, I'm not going to do that. I'm not going to do
I
that.
tried.
But
We haven't had a bet in a long time.
you
You're
got-
just too hot, too scared. I want the edge on you.
you,
I
you
need to
got you got to
fool
be
you or something.
you got to be careful because you don't know if Trump's going to tweet about this stock.
Oh my goodness, these Trump tweets are driving me crazy. So obviously we had the Boeing tweet. We talked about it on the show there yesterday. CNBC talked about it for 10 hours. Literally, I had CNBC on a few times throughout the day, and every time I flipped it on, they were talking about Trump and the Boeing tweet. Well, he had multiple tweets yesterday. He also talked about SoftBank, and that was making shares of Sprint fly. And then there was another one too. Wasn't there three yesterday? Three stocks moving off of Trump tweets. Do we know what the other one was, Spencer?
Sprint,
I saw a SoftBank, and then Sprint was flying off of that.
Boeing.
I like tuned out the market for the second half of the day, so let me tune in or look real fast.
There was a third one. I can't remember which
What's
one it
the
was
symbol
either,
for
but
SoftBank?
well, it was Sprint. It was moving off of
Okay.
Sprint. That made Sprint move because SoftBank was going to invest in the U.S. They
Yeah, yeah. He
Sprint.
tweeted that SoftBank has agreed to invest $50 billion in the U.S. toward businesses and 50,000 new jobs. Um, what else did he tweet?
And Sprint took off on that.
Yeah, that was it.
And I thought there was a third stock moving. Anyways, unbelievable. I guess we just got to follow Trump here because we used to say Icon was the biggest mover in the shaker, but he hasn't really been moving stocks as much as they used to. I'll officially say Trump is now the biggest mover in shaker. He could say, cancel a Boeing contract and Boeing will fall $2.
And it did, but you know what? That was a buying opportunity on that one because Boeing went down to 149.75 on that tweet. Never saw it during the regular session here. So yeah, the low in the regular session was 150.02, closed at 52.24. So be careful chasing it. When these things come out, probably a better fade than it is to go with the flow on something like that.
What about CMG? Because if you were looking at that, trying to
Oh,
say, hey, maybe 385, and I haven't said on the show, maybe it bounced to 385. Now, 380, 370, 360, went all the way down. Yeah, 362.55. They absolutely murdered this thing. And like we've said, the brand is just so tarnished. I just don't know how they get it back. Eventually people forget, but sometimes it takes a long time. And here you are, you're talking about, revenue potentially disappointing here once again. CMG trading down $30 yesterday. You got that the one number there from the end of October, or actually
350.
November
Yep.
1st,
Yep.
352. I mean, that's the bogey, I guess. So maybe it bounces off that level there. But poor Ackman. I mean, we've made fun of him a lot on the show, but you almost feel sorry for the guy. I mean, here he is, 420, 430. He's just got bad luck right now. I mean, everything it seems to touch turns to dust. And here, he buys Chipotle, puts, a stake in it, and boom, they aren't coming back here. Kramer was talking about the lines coming back multiple times on Mad Money. Kramer's not talking like that now, and here we are. We're down here again near the lows, and I just don't like buying tarnished brands, and that's why I'm hands off on Chipotle still.
Dennis, do you try and on an intraday chart? And I know this is a higher price stock, so it's a little bit less liquidity. I mean, do you ever go after it? Like just trying to offer it down with the crowd, or is it just, I mean, move too fast? Because I saw the initial bump
Then
when, yeah, it's thin. Because the
I
initial,
think, if you're really early on the news, yeah, you've got to be early on it. We were pretty early on it yesterday. We were talking, Spencer was all over it with the comment from the conference call, and it was traded around 390 when we started talking about 392. And we were saying, well, I think, it's going to test 385. So there were 7 points, I guess, if you could short 392 to 385, but then, obviously that 385 didn't hold at all, just kept going down. So I think there's a play for the news if you're really quick and really early on it. But once it starts going down, I mean, how do you know where the bounce happens? That's the biggest problem with chasing the news. And I think if you're selling at 380 or 375, you are chasing the news. It kept going down. It would have worked out in this case. But I think you need to be on that news in like the first 30 seconds.
and I think that also like the liquidity. I mean, it's a higher price stock. Also pennies. I mean, if something like it's so. I mean, you could see a bunch of shares trading, but it's really hard to see where the icebergs are. It's a lot different than if there was only 8 or 16 increments where it could trade. But boy, oh
Especially the
boy,
pre-market. It was thin. I mean, it fell fast. We were covering live on the show. It fell like 15 points in 5 minutes.
because
So it's tricky.
you know what the big boys do is probably the first thing someone saw the news when it was trading like 398. A big player or maybe someone that was long, boom, they probably lock it down like 5,000. I'm just using numbers here, but you lock it down 5,000 at 390. People are going to be knocking on, the 89s, 88s, 87. You lock it down another 5,000 at 385. See if you're getting hit on it. And then, I mean, there was a bounce because, you shorted 375 the first time, within 8-9 minutes you were back up at 382. You'd be scratching your head. So yeah, it's hard. It's hard to find those levels. For today's trading, though, let's look forward. Let's look at yesterday's low. Have we taken that out? Yesterday's low was 362.55. Two other levels to keep an eye on here if you're a CMG trader: 58.63 and 52.96. So those are the areas of the lows from November 1st and November 2nd.
It's a great point you're making too, and so much movement, even off of earnings and even off of, major news events, when it's a little bit subjective, you don't know where it's going. The big money pushes these prices around. I mean, imagine you were short coming in Chipotle and you're like, yeah, if you were short, your Fidelity or well, maybe not Fidelity isn't the greatest example because they're probably not shorting a lot of stocks, but here's a big hedgy that's got a huge short position on Chipotle. You could throw 3,000 shares out, like you said, out 390. And people are like, whoa, this is going lower. So, you're kind of making your point. You're like, yeah, I'll short some more and it's going to push this price in my direction. So, I mean, that's a kind of bullying the stock down. And that happens. That happens. I mean, this was going to go down no matter what. But there is definitely some times where the news is kind of, is it good? Is it bad? Is it good? Is it bad? And if you're a big player, there's ways to bully that stock up and then get everybody thinking, oh, it's good news. Or there's ways to bully that stock down, and and this is kind of shady tactics there, but it happens, and it's important as a little guy to understand that happens. So when you got like a wishy-washy report, there's definitely times where the big money, some big player that's got a position on already, will bully that stock into the direction that they want it to go.
Especially in the pre-market tradings.
Yeah, because it's thin, and you could have bullied that Chipotle down pretty big yesterday. But that was that was news that just was not good. So it was probably going down no matter what. Jumping over 824, 10 minutes before Tommy Lackey changes our mind on big options trades. MasterCard MA trading up a buck in the pre-market. Spencer, it looks like a buyback.
$4 billion buyback, and they're also raising their dividend from 19 cents a share to 22 cents per share.
And it was expected to go up, but not quite that much. So, well, I guess 3 cents isn't that much anyways. But MasterCard getting a nice little lift off it. Ugly candle yesterday, bouncing here today. I look at a lot of overhead resistance at 104 here, though, so I think it gets up towards that area, even though it's a nice big buyback. And, I've never been a fan of the buybacks. And actually, maybe we should just talk about this here, too, because I've talked about this on the show before. And I was having a conversation with one of my friends from, he's a professor at University of New York, and he's actually was talking about writing something on buybacks and how companies obviously sometimes buy back stocks at the wrong times. And we talked about IBM on the show before, how they were buying it back at over $200 a share multiple times, and it's kind of like throwing money away when your stock goes down afterwards because you're buying high. So a lot of times companies seem to want to buy back their stock at the highs, and they seem to, not be so much of a buyer at the lows because they're in a weaker position. So I'm just not I'm a more fan of giving it back in dividends as opposed to doing buybacks because I feel like the timing is just terrible on some of these buybacks.
Right. IBM is your best example. They bought a ton of stock up here in this area, 180 and above. But interesting chart if you're a Beamer trader here. Monthly resistance, and this should also be reflected on the daily chart too. 165. That's a big hurdle. And if you think about what the market has done, post election, yeah, this had a little bit of a rally, but boy, 5 points off that 165 level. It's hit it 3 times and backed off. So longer term, we'll be looking at 165 in IBM.
WDC. This stock is up another 3 points here. Spencer, what did they announce here after the bell?
Had some good guidance yesterday after the bell. They raised their Q2 guidance. The EPS was a buck 85 to a buck 95. Now it's 210 to 215, and the revenue was 4.7 billion. Now it's 4.75 billion for Q2. So shares are rallying, looking good there.
All right.
WDC, this stock has been one of the most incredible stocks here from the last 3, 4 months. And Joel, I just gotta say, man, you bought the bottom on this thing. You still got this?
Yeah, it's in the never sell portfolio, and it
Where'd you
also.
buy this? What price?
I know I took some heat on it here. I think I bought it in the lower 40s and immediately dipped under 40. Also pays a nice dividend here, and
Yeah.
obviously that's coming down a little bit. I mean, it's something that I'll look at and hand over to Dana and Emily. Maybe I saw someone here go by as something about 120 price target is in play. I'm not sure about that. I'll just give you the early levels in it. Pre-market high is at 67.95. That takes out the former levels, that you had. Maybe $70. I see a 69 even high back from November of 2015. But if you're shorter term trader, throw stuff out at the whole and half numbers, if you're looking to get out of something because it's kind of hard to find anything up to 70. Dr. J, you said long-term IBM. What time frame? Look at the monthlies here. And that was a thing. I had a monthly chart up. Sometimes it's good to go to those monthly time frames, and you had 3 spikes up to 165. More than that, this is a monthly. 1, 2, 3, 4. You've got up to that 165 area. So I'm looking at on a longer term chart in order to get a continued move higher in IBM.
Just looking here, you're talking DRAM prices to me
Yeah,
on the
sorry about
morning
that.
on the
Yep.
pre-market show, and we're seeing Micron trade up here this morning. We're seeing some of these other stocks that and I'm not a specialist in any of this, but with DRAM prices going up, it's got to be good for some of these stocks.
Right. Let's take a look at Micron
What was
2044.
the DRAM pricing news though
18
that you were talking about?
bucks that there's some magazine or there's some let me look at I didn't jot down the headline here. Dram Exchange says Dram contract prices rise to $18
Sure.
in November Digitimes. So if that's a big source for you, 1980 is your pre-market high. You've backed off that high of
It
the
also
move.
got a buy rating from Micron got a buy rating from Citigroup here today, and with the price target of $30.
Whew. And Ace's favorite stock, trying to get into double digits.
AMD.
Yeah, Ace has been over this one.
He's been all over this since $2, so give Ace some props on this one. AMD has been a monster year. I mean, you talk about stocks of 2016. AMD has got to be one of the best ones. This was $2, looking like it's in trouble there at the beginning of 2016. It's now almost $10. Like, I mean, that's coming in 963. You're within striking distance of double digits on this thing.
Yeah, and boy, oh boy, I did talk to him about that, and this must have been at the end of last year, and I had just a boatload of the 3 calls. Of course, they went off the board worthless, but man, when it broke out, no looking back. Back to 2010, we had a high at 1024, so we'll see if it can get into double digits. Esteban's mentioning the Nvidia, that one sell-off. It had that one day where
Came
probably
right back.
right back, and on the bounce, I looked at that and I'm like, okay, finally a chink in the armor right here. I was thinking, well, let's see, how it reacts that second day after you had the big sell-off and you had a green candle. So I just laid off the puts. I thought you might get a gap fill, but now that's getting back near its all-time high at 95.25.
Chris again, my buddy Chris I was talking to earlier on the show. He talked to me 4 days ago when this was selling off, and he's like, "Look at these tech stocks." He's like, "These are some great companies that are really getting hit hard here." And he went in that day buying Nvidia just above $85 a share. He was buying Cognizant. He was buying a couple other ones too. And man, great call by him. If you're listening, Chris, congratulations, because boom, right back up on Nvidia, $8. So just I guess, sometimes, if there's good companies and they're pulling back 7, 8 points in one day just on overall market movement, sometimes there's some opportunities there. And Nvidia was a buying opportunity back at 85.
Yeah, those are just so hard for me because I think of just it filling a gap.
I know. I can't do it either. When the stock's down 7, 8 points, I think automatically, whoa, what's going on? Maybe this is a turn. Maybe that was the top up there at 95. But if you closed your eyes and just bought at 85, boom, in 3 days, you're already up 8 points. Basically 10% in 3 days.
Spencer, you got some Starbucks news?
Today is the analyst day or investor day or whatever you want to call it. So Howard Schultz, I believe, is on a conference call right now. A couple headlines coming out of that. First off, Starbucks reported their 5-year plan this morning. They're going to add 12,000 stores globally by 2020. They project 10% revenue growth and 15 to 20% EPS growth.
Where do they put these stores? Every quarter I look at has a Starbucks. Where are 12,000 stores going?
All right, let me finish.
China.
mid single digit comp growth annually. Some quotes now. Howard Schultz saying if Starbucks were a 20 chapter book, we're still in chapter 4 or 5. There's a seismic change going on in bricks and mortar, downturn in pedestrian traffic. Many retailers will close physical stores as returns don't justify the cost, but Starbucks is invested in mobile and ahead of the curve. But I don't know. China is, I don't know. You're right, Dennis. There is a Starbucks, especially in New York City. There is a Starbucks on every single corner. So I don't
remember the Simpsons episode where, and I'm a Simpsons fan. So remember the one where Homer's in the mall and he's like at the one store there and he's like, you gotta hurry up. We're closing the store. We're turning into a Starbucks. And then he steps out, and every single store in the entire mall is a Starbucks. It's like he's walking down. They're all Starbucks. So like that's what I feel like. They're like on every corner.
You know why I won't buy Starbucks for the stock for a long-term hold? Because I'm worried about Amazon getting into coffee shops.
Amazon coffee. They can do it all. Maybe everything will just become Amazon eventually. Like we'll just, go in, we'll do, you could go, you buy a car off, and they'll open up cars, dealerships, they'll open up, they're going to the grocery store market already. Everything is just Amazon.
Restaurants. All right, we're going to take a quick break. We're going to bring on our only guest of the day, and that's Tommy Lackey, managing partner and portfolio manager at Relativity Capital Advisors. We're going to talk about his scanners and also going to talk about a little bit more about these big option plays. We'll be right back with Tommy.
Whether you're a short-term swing trader or a long-term investor, you need to check out Thinkorswim, brought to you by TD Ameritrade. There's a reason why Thinkorswim has been named the #1 trading platform, because it has it all. With Thinkorswim, you can trade stocks, options, futures, forex, and virtually every other type of order. Get notifications on mobile devices and interact with other traders in chat rooms. You can also use technical indicators and see the latest investing and trading education in Think Money magazine. If you want to keep up with the markets, you need Thinkorswim. To experience everything Thinkorswim has to offer, open a TD Ameritrade account today. Thinkorswim, the online trading platform for traders and investors. TD Ameritrade, member SIPC. All investing involves risks.
Welcome back, traders and investors, to Benzinga's pre-market prep, brought to you by Benzinga Pro. I'm your co-host, Joel Elkanan, along with Dennis Dick, Spencer Israel behind the glass, and we have Tommy Lackey on the line, managing partner and portfolio manager at Relativity Capital Advisors. Tommy, how you doing on this Wednesday morning?
I'm doing great. How are you guys doing?
We're doing well. So first of all, we appreciate you hopping in the chat there, and we also appreciate you, taking the other side of Dennis's trade here on the options market. Tell us what you've learned about from following this big options activity.
Yeah, I've been convinced. I'll put it this way. I started watching some of it about 5 or 6 years ago and didn't really get it, didn't understand it a whole lot. And I think I was a lot of times following some of the wrong people. And hate to drop names, but I will say I found that the Nigerians aren't exactly as accurate as I'd like them to be. And that made me search further and find that basically there's a big process to really being able to read the options flow. And it almost has to be like an old tape reader, where you almost have to get to the point to where you see how these trades go off. And in doing that, you can tell a lot of times more so whether they are hedges or whether they are bought or whether they're sold. And of course you have to check the OI the next day on some of them, but there's a lot of times, good example is if someone's selling a good bit of, say, calls or whatever versus buying, chances are it'll be closer to the bid price that those go off on versus the offer. And a lot of times with options only being a few dollars or things like that, the spreads can be a dime or more. And so you can really tell a lot of times which side they're leaning on that. And that tells you a lot about the most potential structure of that trade. Of course, with anything in the markets, nothing's going to be right 100% of the time.
Yeah, and that's what it is. It's finding, those times where, somebody might be in the know or, somebody might be, putting a position on that, actually might reflect where the price is going as opposed to just, deciphering or just putting on a hedge.
Well, and I agree with that, but I think there are many different ways that I've learned or I'm learning from Joe as to how that works. Because number one, and someone said this in the chat a few minutes ago, is once you start getting repeat buyers over multiple days and over, 500,000, 3,000, 5,000, contract blocks in these things like MU we were talking about just a few minutes ago, that thing has been pounded since this summer. And that's larger institutional guys. And one of the things you got to realize here, a lot of people don't realize until they start digging into it is, when people always talk about the 13F filings and all that. Well, guess what? A lot of those positions are bought in the options market months before. And these days, it's much easier for them to go and buy 5,000 in the money calls than it is to try to buy 500,000 or more shares right off the bat without moving the price. And so that's what happens is you see a lot of these bigger players and institutions starting to take their positions in options and then just get basically exercised once the time runs out. And that allows them to get into the market still a little bit cloaked because not as many people are watching options volume as people are watching actual stock volume.
Tommy, I think the point here is you kind of got to know what you're looking for. So, and I agree.
Absolutely.
You're talking me a little bit more into it here. It's not my area of expertise, so that's probably why I don't use it as much in my trading or use it at all. But I do use tape reading. And I use it on equities, and a lot of times you'll see people talking about block trades, and you'll look, and I would say 90% of block trades are meaningless, just two institutions crossing. And then in other times you see a block trade, and Joel will know what I'm talking about here, where you've got a seller in the market, the price is moving down, and then boom, you see the block trade, and it's like the mop-up print, the cleanup print, and that's usually where the price reverses. So looking for different timing on that. So, if you're looking for it, then it might jump out at you. So you probably got to get that eye for it. And it sounds like you're talking about Joe from Options Hawk, right?
Yes. And he's the gentleman that's working with me now on this new portfolio. So I've really been getting deep into this recently because it's a big part of our process or his process. I don't want to take credit for it because it's something he's developed over the last 10 years. And it really is different, in my opinion. I've been in this business for 20 years, and everybody says something's different. But it took me a long time to get comfortable, but now I'm really realizing that basically what it is if you have really strong fundamental companies that you're following, that's the why you would want to be there. and then you see these big, huge option flows that fit your criteria, that tells you that other people want to be there. So who wants to be there? And then you take your technical analysis and put it on top of that to give you the when you want to be there. And so it's a great process to have that options flow there in the middle. And it's basically the way people used to use volumes flow or volume with stocks. And as I've told you many times, I just feel like that has become much less accurate as volume used to be, just due to a lot of these derivative plays and things of that sort.
Any notable? I mean, you mentioned the Micron. Any other issues, either upside or downside? You've seen some notable, repetitive option activity
Every day.
Okay.
Every day. And it's different stuff. But like right now, and it all depends on where things are rotating. One of the things that Joe wrote a thing on last July was about seeing all big options flow into 2017 and 2018 financials. And that was right before financials started moving to the top of the heap. And it's basically seeing these big things. And that's where you were talking about, Dennis, knowing when is what. Well, when someone's willing to put a play out, 12, 18, 24 months and put $2 or $3 million in premium into it, then they're not necessarily worried about tomorrow, but they're pretty darn confident something's going to happen.
All right, let's move in.
And that's kind of where that is.
Let's move into the nitrous scan here in blue. A breakout here in the biotech, Bluebird Bio. Tommy,
great breakout, but it is coming down this morning.
Okay.
So it's giving some of that back. So you want to keep an eye on it and just make sure it holds over that probably, I would say realistically, I'd like to make sure by the end of the day it's over about 74.50-ish, 74.60-ish area. Because there's a few levels right here in this. Ideally, it's over 74.90 by the end of the day. But for now, it's pulling back a little bit because it had a big surge yesterday on decent volume, not humongous. But it's trying to leave this range, and if it leaves this range, it can start heading up and reversing that downtrend that we saw through the last part of last year and first part of this year.
All right, how about Fred Inc. A here? Now, here's a stock that has got cut in half since 2014, and I'm looking on the daily charts, and you'd say, wow, that's had a big move from 8 to 10.5, but probably just maybe getting started here if you're looking at a longer-term chart. Tell us how you're playing Fred.
Correct, and number one, just to let everybody know, is I believe it has earnings either tonight or tomorrow. So be careful with this one, trying to go into it here right before earnings, especially after this long downtrend. But as I said in my notes, this one's one that even though it's come up a ways, give it a little bit of time, keep an eye on it, because once it clears 11, I think it could head to 13 real quick. And that's really what I'm looking at here is that, some people who are real short-term traders might trade it now against yesterday's low and see if you can be in pre-breakout of 11. But if you're someone who doesn't really like the volatility much, I'd let it clear 11, and then you probably got some room for it to run.
All right, here's a chart that I could see some merit in. CZR, that would be Caesars Entertainment Corporation. Double top there. You're looking to play a bust out through that 8.25 level.
Yeah, and that's basically what this is. It looks like it's ran a little bit. And yesterday they tried to pull it back, and then it recovered by the end of the day. By the end of the day, well, it's above all the important moving averages. Its on-balance volume is running pretty well right now. So, yeah, I look for the break over that about 835-ish area or 830 area. And basically, I like to let it get a little bit above those highs just to make sure it's not teasing us. But let's say the 830 area, and then I think this one can keep going. You've got a big gap up around 950 on this one.
All right, World, looking for the next leg, but you're looking for some good volume. Tell us what you're seeing in World Acceptance. Tommy, I don't want to throw you under the bus, but what in the world do they do?
I don't know. They're credit services. That's all I know. So I'm sure they probably loan people money. It might even be one of the little day loans. I don't have any idea. But what I looked at here was you had this nice surge in early November that ran up through, and then it pulled back to the 1st of December with some of the market softness in general. But last 2 days, it's had a good, strong volume move back towards and above those highs. So I think this one heads on up. I think basically 70 is a decent target on this one from here.
Dennis, you going to do the meltdown there, or did we lose?
No, I'm on mute.
Okay.
Sorry. That's the whole mute trick. So, anyways, I was on mute. Sorry about that. Meltdown, SHWC. Just looking here, actually. Do you mean
I think I did
SWHC?
it wrong. Yeah,
Yeah,
it's
SWHC.
SWHC.
Smith and Wesson. I
Sorry
want
about
to get your
that.
thoughts on Smith and Wesson because these gun makers have been absolutely annihilated. Anybody who thought when Trump got, to be president here that these things were going to rally has been getting run over here. And maybe that's because you don't need to go out and run out and buy your guns because Trump's not going to do anything, obviously, on gun control. So RGR and SWHC have been significantly under pressure since Trump got in. What do you see happening in the charts?
Yeah, and these look like they could be major tops. You're seeing a lot of volume coming
A
out of them and
top
all
in
that.
SWHC?
And whether nothing else happens, if you look at the weekly on it, and I
Okay.
mean from the weekly standpoint, I mean big. I don't mean small. So it's down here towards this bottom and it's down to these lows, and these lows have to hold. It can't lose 20. It's still got a few percent before it even gets there, but if it loses 20, then I think this one can easily be down to the 19, then 17, and then you have another level around 15. It's just $2 increments from there. It just starts cascading. Now, I'm not sure that it heads that far because there's still the sales side and all that are still good. I think a lot of this is perception, but we all know that perception is what runs the markets for a while until the actual reality catches up.
Newell Brands, NWL. That stock's been under pressure for the last 10 points as well. It's up at 55 in the summer, now down here at 45. What do you see happening in NWL?
Hang on 1 second. It's trying to pull up the wrong chart for me. What I was trying to pull up looks great. MWL does not. It just lower highs, lower lows. It keeps making them. It's at a level right here. It's between probably 44.50 and 45. That if it doesn't hold that, then you've got a whole other step down. You'll lose that 44 area, and then you go 40 and then 36. I mean, it's not a good looking chart. It's not participated at all over the last 4 months.
And this one has been very ugly. Kate Spade, Kate. This stock, if we go out to the weekly, was $35 a year and a half ago. It is now $15.40 here. Kate looks dangerous here too because it's been consolidating here for a while down here just above $15. I mean, I guess you could say it got down to $14.26, but it starts to go through that area, and man, it just doesn't look good.
Yeah, and that's exactly it. I mean, if it gets back below that area, because if you notice back in the first part of this year, those lows were right around that 15 area, and it's now broken it twice in the last 2 months, and the bounce is not showing a whole lot of volume. So I did put it as a look both ways plays because I think if you got over about 16, you might run for a little further, probably run all the way up to 18 if you get over 16. But I wouldn't be counting on that. I'd use that 16 potentially as something to trade against if you get a nice weak candle at some point.
Do we lose?
Moving over into no, I'm here. Joel's not looking at your chat. Moving over to the relative strength losers here. Actually, the relative strength gainers. You've got a couple on here that are interesting. Triple D and Netflix. Let's go to Triple D first. DDD. This has started to show a little bit of life the last couple of days here. Everybody had it for dead 3 days ago, but it's went from 13.5 up to over $15. What are you seeing in Triple D?
Yeah, it's got that gap down just above around 15.50, maybe a little higher. I don't see the exact price right yet. But if it can get above that, it probably runs back up towards these highs. And really what we need to concern ourselves with here is that, A, if you're a shorter-term player, you could try to play the run back up there because it does look like it's trying to shape up. It's got higher lows, and now it's got slightly higher highs. So it's in officially an uptrend, but it's certainly isn't convincing yet. So let it move a little further, maybe close that gap, and then work on a play up to around 18, 19. And then as I always talk about, those are guide levels, not necessary targets. So at that level, see how it acts. If you're a longer-term player, see if you can get through it. If you're shorter-term, take your profits and move on. But if it breaks above that 19.50-20 area, it probably heads to 30 like in no time.
Frankie, 23 in the chat, is thinking about adding to her CHK position today. Could you pull up Chesapeake Energy while you're doing that? I'll just make one comment on this one. It's getting up near that $8 level here. We reached $8.15 back in August. And how much of this rally, is attributed to the big rise in oil? And now, you're starting to peel back here. To me, I'd like to see a couple closes $8 before I'd be convinced there's another breakout, moved up from the 550 level. Tommy, what are your thoughts on CHK?
Okay, CHK moved over that 8 or 7 level a few days back, and that's when it hit the nitrous on one of my scans. It's on RS, or it's not on it at the moment, but it hit it then. It is moving up in a good fashion on both sides. You're right; it needs to get over that 8 level, and that's important. But y'all we were talking about options flow. This is one that on 12/1 had about 8,000 April 17/7 calls bought. So you've had in the money calls bought on 12/1 about a month or
To go, Mattel, big weekly level here needs to hold. Maybe a tough Christmas for Mattel.
yeah. I mean, very surprising when I looked at this. Obviously, because it was Christmas. Not that I really follow it seasonality, but basically in October and November, it just got nailed at all the moving averages. It really could never get over them, and now it's back towards the low of that. And so it made me flip over and look at the weekly chart, and the weekly chart on this thing just looks tragic. I mean, it just looks like it's about to drop off the cliff, or the ledge that we often talk about. And we talk about the ledges on the daily a lot, but when you see them this large on the weekly chart, it's ugly.
A couple more here. Let's just look at CMG. That's a little lost that 385 yesterday. Man, chasing this thing now. What do you look at next stopping point for CMG?
Well, and that's what we talked about last week is the 385 and just the fact that 385 to 390 level, if it loses, it could be ugly. And yesterday it did. It was on big volume, and it's right back down at that price, those price levels, 355 to 360 that we saw in late October. Now, the problem with it is, as I said before, is that 385 level held for so long, it broke real quick and then got right back above it. The fact that we've lost it again so quickly, I think that increases the odds that we lose these 360, 355 lows too, and this one continues down. Now, you still see how it acts there, but I think there's a good chance we break it at this time, and this one has further to go.
All right, final one, JCI. I believe that's Johnson Controls, has had decent support. Look at both ways on this one, JCI.
Yeah, this one could certainly continue to pull back down to the 42.50, 43 level, but it has a lot of strength in it in the actual company. It's in one of the right industries right now, electronics and cars. And the major breakout of the major weekly cup and handle we saw over the last month or so basically comes in right around the 43 level as well. So it could pull back a little bit further, but I don't think I'd be shorting this one for the long term right now until it gets below that gap at 42.
We've been on the line with Tommy Lackey, managing partner and portfolio manager at Relativity Capital Advisors. Tommy, great chatting with you. We'll speak to you again next Wednesday.
Thanks, guys. Dennis, let me know if you need more convincing.
I'm going to talk to you guys, and you teach me how to read these options outside big buys and big sells.
All right. Fun discussion there, Dennis. 854. I don't believe we covered any imbalances.
Let's go take a look here. I'm going to look for the first time as well. Bank of America, 533,000 to buy, so continued buying pressure. It's trading down 3 cents though in the pre-market, so could be an opportunity there. It feels like some of these financials want to roll over here a little bit today. So I might actually look at these from the short side here today, even though there's a buy and balance in Bank of America, a buy and balance in Citigroup. I do have some hedges on in there and some different pairs trades, but overall I'm net neutral in the financials right now. Sprint, 239,000 to buy. Obviously had the huge pop intraday there yesterday off of the Trump tweet. It went up to $2.60 before giving the majority of those gains back. Is up a little bit here this morning. General Electric, 158,000 to sell. That's significant for GE at this early in the morning. It's trading down a little bit here in the pre-market. GE, I can just tell you, man, 31.50 is like the Rock of Gibraltar. That's where we topped out back in August and September about a dozen times. Now here in November, we get up there at 31.38, 31.40, 31.49. And then 3, 4, 5 times here in the last few days, we've been getting up to that 31.50 area as well. So
Wow.
31.50 just remains, that's some level where there's some institution taking off a piece because it's just too, that's just a huge level.
Yep, institutions not one, not up maybe 2 or 3.
Charts don't look like that naturally
No
without a
way.
big seller there. They just don't keep going up and hitting the same level again and again and again without continued selling pressure. So there's some algo, there's something there taking off piece 3150. That's great to know though, because if you're long the stock or if you're looking, at it from the short perspective, you could short out that 3145 to 50 a few times here, but making money every single time. So I guess keep playing until it doesn't work.
Right, and more than one institution sometimes makes that, and then they start leapfrogging each other, to get done. And looks like they're targeting. We'll keep an eye on that long term. I see Apple trading down 80 cents. Man, this thing we had talked about it yesterday. Was it yesterday or the day before? 110. You want to talk about a whole number coming into play here?
Yep.
110. It's just been a big level here. I've been looking at it, few times, and got to 110.36 yesterday. Closed under 110. Last 3 highs: 110.09, 110.03, and 110.36. So there's some big levels there. Anything else I'm trying to see here? Let's just do a quick look at Dave and Buster's to see if you got any profit taking on that. We spent a lot of time on that on the show.
Still around the same price.
Yeah, still around the same price. All right, well, it is 8:58 here. Time to go to Spencer to wrap up the show and preview Thursday's show.
We had a little bit of a stream disruption on YouTube's end, but it looks like we're all good now. On tomorrow's show, we've got Tobias Carlisle on the show. He hasn't been on in like 2 years, I think. He is the principal at Equum Investment Management. So looking forward to chatting with Tobias tomorrow. If you missed any part of today's show, including our first half hour, our discussion about options, order flow, and Chipotle, and what else did we discuss? Western Digital, all that good stuff. Or our chat with Tommy just now. You can catch the whole thing again. It's on YouTube right after the show ends. It's also on iTunes, SoundCloud, and Stitcher. At least the podcast version is, where we edit that slightly. That's usually up within the hour, so around 10 a.m. Eastern Time or so. So iTunes, SoundCloud, and Stitcher for the Pre-Market Prep podcast. You can find it by searching for Benzinga or Pre-Market Prep on any of those platforms. Don't forget about Benzinga Pro. It's Benzinga's real-time news platform. It's what we use during the show to stay on top of what's going on in the market. It's what people all across Wall Street use to get their news from. It's a real-time news platform with SEC filings, press releases, earnings, rumors, M&A news, breaking news. Everything that you need to know what's going on is on Benzinga Pro. You can get a free 2-week trial today by going to pro.benzinga.com. You can also call us up if you want a demo or to learn a little bit more from one of us here at Benzinga. You can call us up at 313-723-2000, and we'll talk you through the platform there. Please always remember that all the information, material, and content from our show is for informational purposes only and not meant to be investing advice. All right, 9 o'clock, so we're going to wrap it up for the day. Hope everybody has had a good morning so far and a good trading. Hope you have a good rest of your day, and good luck out there with those markets. Keep one eye on that Donald Trump Twitter feed, as we learned yesterday. And we'll be back with you folks tomorrow morning.
Whether you're a short-term swing trader or a long-term investor, you need to check out Thinkorswim, brought to you by TD Ameritrade. There's a reason why Thinkorswim has been named the #1 trading platform, because it has it all. With Thinkorswim, you can trade stocks, options, futures, forex, and virtually every other type of order. Get notifications on mobile devices and interact with other traders in chat rooms. You can also use technical indicators and see the latest investing and trading education in Think Money magazine. If you want to keep up with the markets, you need Thinkorswim. To experience everything Thinkorswim has to offer, open a TD Ameritrade account today. Thinkorswim, the online trading platform for traders and investors. TD Ameritrade, member SIPC. All investing involves risks.